Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feelings changed. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn and You guys can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @ name has not changed, at Mike Dugar. That is MikeDugar. Shout out to everyone who is watching or listening via our YouTube channel. Seahawks Man to Man is the name of the channel. That's Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. Please like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that love. We really do. Even if you're someone who consumes us on the audio platforms, it means a lot. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. Seahawks Man to Man is the name of the handle, and on TikTok as well. Seahawks Man to Man is the name of the handle there as well. Appreciate that love and support in advance. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206. And that is CKid206.
All right, this is our post-game show coming to you. What time is it right now? It is 11:51 Pacific time. That's me and Chris staying up late because we love you guys. Seahawks just lost to the San Francisco 49ers again. Was final score 36-24. Seahawks fall to 3-3. They've lost 3 straight, all in the NFC, which is problematic. And they are now 0-1 in the NFC West, which is obviously not good as well. This is their 6th straight loss to the 49ers, dating back to the 2022 season. That includes the wild card loss in San Francisco that year. Chris, we have so many questions from listeners today. When I submitted the little tweet that I do. This was when I was going down to the locker room. So whatever time that was, by the time I got back up, wrote my story, text you that I was leaving Lumen Field, I looked at the reply under my tweet. I seen 74. I said, yeah, that's quite a bit. And there are so many that we're going to actually just dedicate most of the show to answering the questions, because you guys had a lot of them. Good discourse, I think, can be had by addressing those. I do want to start with this, though. That's something that was interesting. Locker room was just like ghost town. I'm sure a lot of guys just didn't even shower, or there's the fastest showers in the world, military type joint, which I can understand. Thursday Night Football, we lost to them again, trying to get out of there. Understand, some guys talk, some guys didn't. You guys know me at this point. I don't fault guys who do or don't. I just ask. You say no, you say no. Not beefing about it. Though one thing was interesting, because the Seahawks had lost so often to this team, I didn't really want to view this game in a vacuum. And I'm glad to see, based on the questions, a lot of you guys are not viewing it in a vacuum either. So I really wanted to, in the locker room, I was standing in the front of the room, and I was like, okay, who has been a part of all 6 losses? Like, I really want their perspective. And I didn't have a roster right in front of me, so I'm just kind of like eyeballing it in the heat of things. And it was tough. It was tougher than I thought to find someone who had played in all 6. Now, there were guys who were on the team at that point, but like Geno, for instance, didn't play in all 6. He was hurt for one of them last year. Let's see. Noah Fant, Stone, Trey Brown. It's not a lot of guys, outside of like the kicker, punter, stuff like that. Tyler DK, of course, but DK was out of there fast. Ken Walker, he doesn't really say anything about anything, so I wasn't going to waste my time there. So the point is here, there wasn't a lot of guys who have been around for all the losses. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but the point is, the reason that there's not is because they have turned over the roster in that time, because they have gotten beaten so many times by their division rival, including in that wild card loss in 2022, which was so monumental. That was a big deal. Playoff losses always are, but it really makes teams look in the mirror. And after that loss, they got their butt whooped. John Schneider and Pete Carroll were like, yo, we are not like that on defense. We need to get like that. And, they weren't really like that on offense either, but a lot of those pieces are still relatively the same. Same quarterback, Tyler, DK, Noah, Ken, so relatively the spine of that is still intact. But Chris, they overhauled the roster since, in the span of all these losses to avoid this type of result. Like, they changed the pieces so they can change the result. Change the coaches so you can change the result, right? And I was looking for guys to speak to that. I thought it'd be interesting perspective. No one really threw me a bone, which is fine. Again, there was a lot of guys not a lot of guys to choose from, for one, and I didn't feel like waiting around for Tyler. He took a long time. And Geno, I asked him about what it is about the Niners. He was just like, we only lost once today. That's all that matters. And I was like, you know what? Fine. It's fine. There's no point in arguing. I was gonna follow up because he asked me. He was like, "How many games we lose today?" One, right? And I said, "Yeah. I mean, yeah, one." Now I wanted to say like, okay, but I'm asking that in the context of losing 6. You've started 5 of those. He wasn't gonna give me nothing, so I just didn't waste my time. It was late. But the point is, there was no one. There was very few people there who had been around for all of them. So many people are new to this, and the names have changed. The faces have changed. The scheme has changed. So many guys different at each level. O-line, running back, or maybe not running back, but O-line, new receivers. JSN's obviously new. New tight ends, new D-line, new linebackers, new safeties, new corners. And it's the same. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's Chris's favorite movie that sucks. The Denzel joint that doesn't make any sense.
Screw
It's
Mike.
Deja.
We've argued about this. I don't care. I'm sticking by my guns.
That's fine. The movie I'm referencing is Deja Vu, starring Denzel and what's her name, Paula Patton.
Yep.
It's Deja Vu, man. It is the same thing. It is the same. This felt like Thanksgiving. Or the other reason that it feels the same to me is because for the last 3 years they've played them on Thursday night. So you played them on Thursday night here in 2022 and in 2023, and then obviously this year, and all the same. It just feels the same. Geno throws a touchdown late. You feel like they got hope. Like literally the 2022 game, I think Geno, they were down 2 scores late. Geno throws like what amounts to a garbage time touchdown to, I believe, Noah Fant. And some random running back breaks like a 50-yarder, and the game's basically down to the goal line, and the game is basically over. They don't score at the end, but it's the same. It's almost the exact same thing. Now, Thanksgiving was a little bit more of a beatdown. They only scored on defense, I believe, with Jordan Brooks pick 6, but the same thing. Deja, it felt like I was really watching the same game. Now, last post-game show, I read one of my stories leading into that game from 2022, and it was basically the same stuff. I don't need to rehash that again. It was Jordan Mason who had that big run. Look at the box score now. Yeah. Geno threw a touchdown to Noah Fant with 3:35 left in the 4th. That cut it to 21-13. So they were down 8. And then Jordan Mason breaks a 55-yarder on 3rd and 2. Like, it really feels like this deja vu. I'm watching the same team lose to the same team in a very similar fashion. And that is, I get Geno's point. He's correct. They only lost 1 game today, but they lost the game. You know what I mean? It feels like in college when the coach get fired because they just lose the wrong game. Like when Jimmy Lake lost the Apple Cup, or when Auburn coach or Alabama coach lose the Iron Bowl, when the Michigan coach loses the whatever the Ohio State rivalry game is. Like sometimes there's just that game you shouldn't lose, that you're not supposed to lose. That matters more. It's just one. That's true. But it just feels a little different. And Chris, today felt different. It felt like they should not have lost, and particularly not have lost like this to this team. And they did, and it looked almost identical to some of the other losses they've had, despite changing the roster and changing all of the coaches.
It's funny. When I was watching the game, I said, damn, this looks all so familiar. They fired Pete, and all those things that they fired Pete for are still happening with this new roster. Outside of DK, Ty Lockett, Geno, and a couple of offensive linemen, this is obviously D linemen too. This is pretty much, hey, we want to make changes, and those changes aren't taking effect yet. You're not seeing it. Now, obviously, both teams were decimated by injuries at one point. I mean, my goodness, maybe they should just end Thursday Night Football, because that Seahawks secondary was depleted. At one point, I'm thinking Mike might have to suit up, and they call him down there. Hey, man, we need you to play corner, but we running out of bodies. But yeah, it was. I was talking to Mike off wax before we jumped on here, and I said, damn, that long run by number 32, the backup running back, or no, who was it? No, I'm drawing. It was
Gerendo,
yeah,
number 31.
number
Yeah.
31. That long run by him remind me of Josh Jacobs ending the game against the Raiders, Derrick Henry against the Titans a few years ago when he just runs down the sideline, stiff arms a player, and he's gone. There was just so many similarities. Guys are overplaying their gaps, and that play, that's exactly what happened. Guys tried to get far outside, and he was able to find the cutback lane, and then poor angles by your safety. Unfortunately, that was Rayshon Jenkins. He's not able to make the play. We've had multiple games last season where Quandre takes a wrong angle and it's a big run at the end of the day. So, yeah, deja vu is something that was happening throughout the entire game. Based on watching the film, linebackers and the play action pass, which I knew the 49ers would do, especially considering the run game was so effective on Thursday night against the Seahawks. Terrell Dodson and company are coming up way too far, and they can't get back, and Purdy throws it right over their heads for a first down. Just everything that has gone wrong these last 3 weeks continued on Thursday Night Football. And it's unfortunate because everyone was excited about the new Macdonald era, but I think it's a personnel thing. I think it's still early in the season, but it's not getting no easier. They had their easiest stretch. Now it's ball time now. It's time to put the mouthpiece in and strap up, or you'll find yourself potentially losing 4 straight because Atlanta, Kirk Cousins thrives off of blitz. They said the Achilles wasn't ready. He didn't look good out for week 1. He has responded quite well. And those receivers down there, they're pretty physical. So they have a huge challenge ahead of them. And as Mike mentioned, they're 0-1 in the NFC West. And the Cardinals, I believe, are 2-0, and then the Rams are 1-2. So, I mean, not the Rams, the Niners are 1-2. So they're trying to play a little catch up right now. And as I mentioned, that honeymoon phase is over. Week 1, you get a soft landing going up against a rookie quarterback on Bo Nix. Okay, you beat him down. That's cool. Week 2, you get the Patriots. Okay, Brissett, he all right. Okay, that's great. Week 3, no Tua, the backup Skylar Thompson. He ain't that good. And then week 4, you're challenged, and we saw what happened. Week 5, another challenge. We saw what happened. Week 6, we know what happened. So there's a lot more questions and answers, and I know the coaching staff is feeling the heat, but this is what John Schneider and company brought you in for. They thought this would be much different, and so far it's not. And one thing I would like to say about the linebackers, which we'll get into with some of the Twitter questions, is there's a reason why they only signed Terrell Dodson for a 1-year deal. It wasn't 3 years, 4 years, anything of that nature. And that's because they probably saw the tape and realized, yeah, he might not fit what we're trying to do, but we'll try to make it work for 1 year and we'll go from there. But the season's not over. They still can definitely adjust. I think it's still a lot of small issues that, as we talked about on our one big thing, where Mike talked about the play action, I talked about the run defense and fits. It can be the simple stuff, but my goodness, when the simple stuff is done wrong, you see the results. And that resulted in another Thursday night loss. That resulted in explosive plays from all 3 running backs. If I'm not mistaken, every single running back that touched the ball for the Niners had an explosive run. And that is a problem. That is not good from the defense. Now, obviously, I understand the defensive line is banged up, and that puts pressure on guys getting in there and trying to make plays. But my goodness, someone's got to step up to the plate and accept the challenge. And that quote unquote next man mentality, someone has to take that on the chin and really get communication down, do their job, all of that. And maybe we're talking about the Seahawks going out, surprising everyone, and beating the 49ers at home.
Yeah, that did not happen. Bad loss. All right, let's go. We got so many questions. Without further ado, what you got? What we got?
All right. First one comes from our guy, our boy, KT. What's really the issue with this front 7? And why are the Seahawks struggling to stop the run? Makes it hard to win.
It's impossible. It's really impossible without some and really good fortune on the other side of the ball, or just a quarterback that is just awful. These quarterbacks are too good, man. It's just too good. Chris rattled off, some of the guys still face next. Like if you can't stop the run, anybody can carve you up, and we've seen it. But I really don't think the here's why I'm really concerned, because it's not just the front seven, it's the whole thing. Run defense is about the whole thing, particularly if you're like a too high team or you trying to stop the run at a nickel. So you're light up front, you got 4 guys on the line and then 2 backers, and your nickel and your safeties, like someone's coming from depth usually to fit it. And the way you stop explosives is in particular at the second level, like guys making those game saving tackles, and if you're not doing that, you get what happened today. And I think one of the things that's happening is what Chris talked about in our last show. The one big thing is guys are supposed to play off of the guys at the second level are supposed to play off the guys up front. Like, all right, if Hank takes on, the front side of this gap, that means, okay, then Jerome's playing off of this gap, or Tyrell's playing off of that, or Rayshon comes down and handles the C gap or whatever, like there's just so much that goes off to like, all right, my man up front is doing this. He's setting this edge. He's holding down this double team. All right, it's on me now to, if I'm the safety, make sure I don't get cracked by a receiver or, get cleared out, dug out by a tight end. Like it's every part of it. I really don't even think I can attribute it just to the front seven. Obviously, that's a big part of it. I don't think they're playing well I think they're playing okay up front because like the way that the scheme works, and this is not just to Mike Macdonald, it's pretty much every team that plays light up front, light boxes, you're going to get to the second level on some of these runs. It's just kind of the nature of what it is. Like Jaron Reed's going to have to take on 2, but in theory, he takes on 2, so Tyrell can shoot the gap, or Baker can shoot the gap, or Spoon or the nickel or the safe. It doesn't really matter. Just the point is, you take on 2 or you take on your block, and all right, cool, I'm sliding there and make this tackle. So one reason why Bobby always has like a bunch of tackles, right? Because he plays off Jay Reed or whoever in the front of him, and he comes in, makes a tackle, right? So they don't have that. They don't have that at any level with any consistency. And very similar to that, you mentioned that Josh Jacobs run from 2022. That was so concerning, obviously, because it was an 86-yarder for the win. That's nuts. The other concern was it was such a simple run. It was just like ISO lead up the gut, and like I think Mac Hollins was one of the receivers on that. I think he didn't even get the play call. He was just like, oh, damn, we running it. Let me go block Quandre or whoever. And then just sprung him, right? Like it wasn't even executed or thought of that well on their part. They didn't think they was going to score, Same thing on Jordan Mason's 55-yard run in 2022 on Thursday Night Football against these guys. It was just a simple, just boom. You hit it. It was blocked really well, but just hit it right up the middle. Yeah, I think that's everybody. I think that they're doing the type of stuff where if one guy's not there, it's a big play. And sometimes that's how football is. You're only as good as your 11th guy, and that's their problem. They have a lot of plays where 10 dudes is doing the right thing. 10 guys make their blocks. In the run defense, everyone's not intended to go get the running back, if that makes sense. Like some guys, like if it's off tackle or something, Boye or Draymond or D Hall or whatever, they're not trying to get the ball carrier. They set the edge and then force it back inside. So that in theory, Baker's there. In theory, Spoon is there. In theory, the corner's there. Whoever. And it's not doing that. They're not playing together. They're not getting all 11 dudes to do the right thing consistently. They were before. They are not right now. And some of that is scheme, but there are teams who can defend the run that way. There are teams who can defend the run out of light boxes and things like that. For instance, in 2021, they were doing a lot of this same stuff. Actually, they were playing too high. They were still, I think their linebackers that year, I believe, was Bobby and Brooks, and Jamal played and Quandre, and they were fitting the runs out of too high just fine. Like Jamal was coming down, playing his gap, cracking people. Quandre was coming down. JB and Bobby was doing their thing, and they're just not doing that. And not doing that, not playing together. It also just looks like at the second level, guys aren't, to your point of last week with our one big thing, it looks like they're just not knowing where to be. It looks very fundamentally flawed. Not to say the scheme itself is poor, but just maybe how it's being taught how it's being absorbed by the guys who are supposed to be learning it is just not getting there, man. I don't think there's a position group playing well. I think the D line is playing probably the best of the three groups, but the point there's no good in that. There's no good in like Draymond, Jay Reed, and Hank. Let's say they're just playing nails. Even if they're playing nails, you gotta have the support. And Chris, right now, they got a bunch of dudes that there's just one guy doing the wrong thing pretty consistently. I don't even think there was a ton of missed tackles today. I have to go look. It really was just bad fits. A lot of bad fits all the way to that last run. And that was so demoralizing, dog, because it was like, they're about to run. Like you can almost guarantee Charles Barkley voice that they about to run. It's 1st and 10, and they just run it right at you. That, like Rayshawn Jenkins told me after the game, he was like, it's gonna be hard to win if we can't do the simple stuff right. He is 1,000% correct. If people are out scheming you, that's hard to do week to week. If they just blocking you up, oh yeah, it's a long day. It's gonna be a long day. They're giving up Chris 100 points in 3 weeks. What? A hundo?
I know that point differential crazy right now.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go to the next question. I'll check what their point differential is. Yeah, I'm sure it's nasty.
Daniel, I know the Ravens started slow on defense in 2022 when Macdonald first became defensive coordinator. Do you see parallels between this and that, or is the Seahawks defense just a disaster at this point?
It's a good question. I didn't study the 2022 first half of the Ravens super well. I do know my peoples who know it a little bit better than me. I've talked about how, they started slow. I think Tua whipped their butt in one of them games early on. And that happens. That makes sense. He's just kind of, I think that was his first year as a DC, I think, at the NFL level. So it's going to be natural growing pains. They didn't really get cooking until Roquan showed up later in that season. Having an all-pro inside linebacker certainly helps. Cleans up a lot. That would fix a lot of the problems they have now. You drop Raekwon into the middle of this. So I think I don't see a ton of like obvious parallels because the personnel is so different. They have such different players that who are better or just like good at certain things. Like I think Leonard is unlike any player on that Ravens line. I think Marlon Humphrey and the other corners, number 21, are just so different than like Spoon and Reek and the things that they do well and the foundation that they're trying to build on with those guys. I think the only thing that you can really take from that is how important Roquan was. Like the guy in the middle can do so many things in both aspects of the game. Play action, stopping the run, coverage stuff, blitzing. Like Raekwon's nasty at all that too, and how well he played together with Patrick Queen, who Queen really didn't turn up until Mike Macdonald showed up. If I trust in the word of my people who watch the Ravens a lot more than me, so yeah, I don't think the parallels. I get where the question is going. It's a fair one. Like, the Ravens starting out. Maybe it just takes time. Perhaps, but what's happening here looks so eerily similar to what they just replaced. That is where I don't even want to. The 2022 Ravens, I don't even want to go that far back. We can just go back to this. Don't look like the 2023 Ravens against the same offenses. That's the other thing, Chris, that's so kind of alarming. Now it's not apples to apples, like in NFL's a week by week game, but like the Lions could only get 6 points against the Ravens last year. 6, I'm pretty sure. 38-6 is what their final was. And Jared Goff looked like Joe Montana against them, in week 4 by same offense, obviously different Seahawks defense versus the Ravens, but same scheme. And Jared Goff was like, I got this, turn up. That was at home versus on the road. I think that Baltimore game was, but look at the Niners. This was test number 2. They shut the Niners down on Christmas last year. Shut them down. Brock turnovers all over the place, right? I think he had like 4 picks. Brock Purdy looked like Dan Marino. Like it's just no magic. It didn't carry over, at least not yet. Not to say it can't, but it has not. They left all the magic in Baltimore, and the same offenses that they were shutting down. They're just not just. It's one thing if they weren't shutting those offenses down again, because it's just hard to do that. Those are good teams. They are just getting blown out. In those 2 games, they've allowed 42 to Detroit, and then 36 today.
Yeah,
that 78 points or something. 2 games against offenses that he shut down last year. Yeah, man, that's the comparison. I want to figure out what's going wrong there, not from what happened in 2022. That seems like the more alarming thing because Chris, it seems like John Schneider didn't say this explicitly, but it does seem like he watched what Mike Macdonald did against the best of the best, right? So the Jags were in first place last year when he shut down the Dolphins offense last year, early in the year, shut down the Niners, shut down the Seahawks offense that was good at the time, shut down the Lions. He was running through all the first place teams and making them look like what the Vikings are doing to teams now. And they're just doing none of that. And John Schneider was like, "Ooh, I'm getting the Sean McVay of defense." Are you? That's not what that is right now. That's the problem. That seems to be the error. We'll get to John Schneider a little later. But yeah, forget the 2022 Ravens. I want to see why they haven't. I need to figure out what happened between Christmas and today. Because this was totally different. They couldn't stop anything the Niners were doing today.
Nothing. This is from Michael's burner. Why does the defense look the same as the last few years with a defensive-minded head coach?
This is the at name here is Michael's burner. It is not my burner. To be very clear here. No, I do not have a burner account. I do not care about social media that much. Chris, this is the money question. I understand the desire to want to get something new in the building and get Pete out of here and his staff. Cool, you want to do that? We've discussed it. However, if you're going to do that, to have this is almost the same exact issues. Middle of the field, like dig routes behind the linebackers who come up too much on play action. I'm pretty sure that the Kittle play today on up the sideline and the Debo play up the sideline are a variation of the same concept. I'm pretty sure they ran that.
It was just the Patriots. The Patriots ran it and they didn't throw it. But I know you're talking about previous years. It's the same concept, but continue.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen that. I feel like Juszczyk caught one of those on them before.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah. Was it last season?
I think it was last season, and then number 82, I think for the Niners caught one that Quandre ends up making the tackle, so it's not a touchdown. But I think that was last year on Thanksgiving, or maybe that was 2022. Like these are it's the same plays. I mean, I got to go back and watch the film to be for sure. But you guys get the point. It's the same conceptual like process leading to the same stuff. And you can't just blame Ken Norton. Can't just blame Clint Hurt. Can't just blame Pete. Like eventually somebody got to fix this stuff. It's the same, somebody, I forget who it was in the little media group that we have. They asked Mike Macdonald about the Niners run game. This was earlier in the week. And they prefaced the question with like, man, it feels like they can put whoever back there and they can run for 1,000 yards. And Mike Macdonald didn't want to be dismissive of the running backs that they have had and was like, no, I'm not going to say that. Like they have a good scheme. The guys they got are running it hard. I'm not just going to say they can put the water boy in there and run for a rack, which is, I think, what the question asker said. Fair response by Macdonald. Boys sure do look like they could have pulled a fan from section 308 or whatever in Niners jersey, put them behind the O-line, and they might have got a first down. Like that, because to your point, Chris, not everyone had an explosive run, but Isaac Girendo, hopefully I'm saying his name right, he had basically 100 yards. Jordan Mason had 73 on 9 carries. This Patrick Taylor Jr., his name? Yep. Yes. He had 16 yards. And I'm pretty sure picked up multiple first downs on the ground. And then Juszczyk had one run for a touchdown, right? And then Debo was doing his thing, didn't have a good yards per carry, but like everybody got involved, and they just nobody, didn't matter who it was. This Girendo kid, like they third string.
And he averaged 9.9.
And he lost a yard after the big joint. He was at 100. I was going to tweet it, and then he immediately lost a yard. So I was like, forget it. Man. I think this is, I would say it's a personnel thing, but the personnel is kind of different. Like they changed, new linebackers, got Jay Reed and Leo in there. I think that's a good tandem. And it's just, brought Hankins in there. So basically your new Al Woods, they changing names. And it just nothing has changed. I really think that is a coaching thing though. Like mostly just because they're not doing the fundamentals. Anytime they're not doing the fundamentals, I'm going to put that on coaching. That just means you get what you emphasize. You're not emphasizing them enough. You may think you are, then you get on the field and you're not. Guys not in gaps, guys not tackling, guys blowing coverages, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I don't know per se why it looks exactly the same. I just know that it does. This is another episode maybe where we're just diagnosing and maybe not, serving up a prescription that fixes the issue. But I just think the fact that that's true at this moment through 6 weeks is so alarming, man. It's so alarming because I do think, and we can move on to the next question after this, Chris, we can probably agree. What Mike Macdonald was tasked to do was so different than the other coaches who got hired. Like there were much lower expectations, I feel like, than the other coaches in this cycle. Let me go through who got hired this offseason. So we got Dave Canales in Carolina, clearly taking over a dumpster fire. No one's expecting Dave to go on there and win the division, right? So let's see. Dan Quinn, Commanders. They are overachieving because that roster was bad too. But they, different expectations, right? Patriots, clearly different expectations. They stink, right? They knew they would stink. Their roster's bad, right? Different expectations. They don't want to be just awful like they are, but come on. You could foresee that. Titans coach probably underachieving a little bit because the Titans stink. Callahan is his last name. Yeah. Yep. And I think you just mentioned somebody.
Antonio
AP.
Pierce.
Yeah, and then we'll see what happens with Harbaugh. I think the Chargers are kind of maybe right where you expect. We'll see
Raheem
how they look.
Morris.
Yeah, Raheem Morris. Like the Falcons are like a fun team. They're on primetime all the time, but no one's like, all right, Raheem, you got to go in there. We need you to be a contender. Like there were very specific things that the Seahawks were hoping that Mike Macdonald was great at, and they're just not great at any of those things. They're bad at everything. Not literally bad at everything, but they're bad at so much more stuff, it feels like now. And to get worse, because now they're bad on special teams. Like, even Pete had that lockdown. It's like this is bad. This is really, really, really bad to have not only the same issues, but then you're adding new issues. Oh man. Woo. Yeah, has all the panic you guys are feeling right now. I can't even talk you off the ledge because it feels really, really bad right now.
This next one is from Steven. Would DK be better used on another team?
Chris, I feel like we have done the appropriate level of like criticism of DK. We're hard on him, but fair. We want him to just catch the 50-50 balls, largely because he wants us to believe like that's his bag. We talked about this years ago. I remember all the games that the broadcast would show the slow-mos of him in the crop top.
The one game that comes to mind, Kansas City Chiefs, negative whatever degrees. They out there with their shirt off. DK over here doing all types of crazy catches. Like he OBJ. The game start, my boy body catching stuff. I'm like, wait a second, man. I just seen you out there one-handing everything. You have the athleticism. That underthrow, come back to the ball or out jump dude. There's no reason you should be waiting for it as if you 5'4" and you needed a perfect place. Go up and use your athleticism. Hell, the touchdown pass. Why are you body catching that? Stretch out, use your length, get your toes down. Kind of what JSN did on the sideline. He was wide open on that corner route. And obviously there's no one pushing him out of bounds, but you saw the high point, toes in. If DK high points it, I think he probably makes the catch.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. And the touchdown into the first half, yeah. In particular, JSN just did the same thing the previous snap. The DB made a great play poking it out, which is a lot easier to do because JSN is shorter. The benefit of having a taller guy that if DK high points it, the guy's arms won't reach. We see this happen quite a bit with some Seahawks corners, particularly when they put bigger guys against Trey Brown. Nothing against Trey. They just measure arm length at the combine for a reason. That particular type of play is the reason. It really is two reasons really to measure these guys' arm length and hands and stuff like that. It's for jams at the line of scrimmage, and it's for plays like that, poking the ball out, playing through the hands. Pretty much the two main reasons, So to answer the question, no, I don't think it'd be different because I feel like the thing that's holding him back will be the same everywhere. Right? This year, it's ball security. It's fumbled, and he's had problems fumbling in the past. And the other thing is, like Chris said, going up, strong hands. Like he can do it. It's not like he's never done it. We don't want to pretend like that. But it's the consistency because it's so glaring when it doesn't happen. I even remember thinking about that. Remember Chris in 2020, he catches that 4th down in the Vikings game, big one to go help them win the game. I think he ends up catching the game winner too. He went up and tried to cuff that the same way he tried to today, and he did it last year in the Eagles game too. I think that might have been because he was about to get smacked. But he makes the catch, and it's great. But it's like you see why you would want him to do it the other way. And it's a nitpicky thing, but I think DK's at the point in his game where he'll welcome that. Like he wants to be great, he wants to be the best, he wants to be a Hall of Famer, he wants to help his team win. And this is something that will easily just help his team win. He's talked about it. He said this offseason he really worked on that, those 50-50 high point catches, because he feels like last year he dropped too many of them. Great self-awareness. The issue, gotta put that in application. Gotta put that in. Because I agree with you. If he high points the one on the 3rd down, they probably still lose the game. Whatever. I don't think it matters that much, but we're asked about DK. If he high points that, I think he has does a better job than of his like letting his legs die, which is what you're supposed to do in those situations. Like when you can go get it and you're just like, all right, cool, toe tap. If you are cuffing it like that, your momentum's carrying you. It's harder to get your legs to die. And you get what happens to him when your right foot doesn't die all the way. And it's tough, man. It's a frustrating thing because DK's so good that it's like, what you gonna do? Stop throwing to him?
No,
Of course not. Never. I mean, even that Jackson catch you mentioned, that corner route, he's wide open because 2 guys run with DK down the
Shout out
field.
DK.
Yeah, so DK dictates coverage in that way. That's why he's so valuable. You just want that to be more consistent, particularly when it's a little unfair to him, but it makes sense. There's a guy, forget the Megatron comparisons. There's a guy in his draft class that he played with in college, same build, same type of skill set, and AJ Brown, who does it regularly.
Man.
And that's what's it sucks. It's like when 2 receivers get drafted or 2 quarterbacks get drafted one after another, like Bryce Young's always going to be compared to CJ Stroud. That's not Bryce's fault. He just, they took CJ right after. But that's the reality. You guys are going to get compared. AJ and DK, same thing. AJ goes up and get those joints. He's like that. He does it enough that no one complain about it. DK's got to do it more, man. And he knows it. Like it's really tough. It's a little nitpicky, but the fumble thing is not nitpicky. But the way you go up and get the passes, that is a legitimate criticism. He's tried to acknowledge it. Just got to do it more consistently, man, because that'll change the whole offense. I feel like, particularly in the red zone, because their red zone stuff right now is kind of shaky.
Ease World, is Geno solely to blame for the turnovers resulting in points?
Man, Chris, I think we got our first bad Geno game of the year.
Oh yeah, this was not good. He threw. Yeah, you can get into it, but it was not pretty. I'm not gonna lie. A couple of times, I'm like, damn, where's the pass rush at? Geno got a little time, and there's nobody open. So I can't wait to see the all 22 because there's a couple of times he just dumped it to Ken Walker, and he was like, Ken, I need you to make somebody miss and try to get upfield. But I'm really curious to see what was going on coverage wise, because I'll tell you this. I don't know how many times the Niner blitz, but I don't think it was over 3 times. They just kept sending 4, 4, 4, 4. They was like, look, we dropping cats in the coverage. We know what y'all got offensively.
Yeah, I can look up that blitz rate in a sec, but today it felt like the off-target day. Like the little mesh joint to JSN that sailed over his head, the DK one that DK probably could have came back for, but the ball shouldn't have been underthrown. And
was there pressure on that play though? I'm trying to remember. He
had somebody. He didn't get a chance to step into it, but
he's also made that throw before. So yeah,
I was just about to say the problem with that is like the curve that he's graded on changes because of that throw he made against the Dolphins. Like the double move for the tug, that was a little underthrown too, but that was further. And he had someone in his face, and he just no hitch, just throws out like 50 yards on the line. Like because I know he can do that. That's why you can critique the underthrow to DK. And then, another one. Oh, the first pick. You got to layer that. It's tough. He was getting smacked. But again, seen him make that before. These are the throws he was making in Detroit. These were the level of difficulty on some of these throws. Geno holds himself to a high standard. He knows he can make those. The second pick, that was just bad. Late, over the middle, first down. That was you can't really forget that part of it too. It was first and 18, so you're probably gonna throw, but you don't have to force anything on first and 18. You got 2 more downs. You do.
Yeah.
So that was disappointing. That really he want that one back. If that was 3rd and 18, it might be whatever because you're about to punt, But first and 18, he lived to fight another down, and he knows that too. That was the other thing why the Geno game was so weird. It was like, this ain't the Geno we've been watching. This just looks uncharacteristic. Even when he hasn't played well against the Niners, it wasn't like a damn, what is Geno doing out there? You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. Even the playoff game wasn't really like that. He got strip sacked in the playoff game, and it just kind of unraveled from there. At that point, it just was game over. Even in the other games against these guys, it's not like, Geno is just not like that. He just doesn't do what he usually does. And I feel like that's the issue. Geno, I can see why Mike Macdonald after the game was like, yeah, Geno, we believe in him. I thought he played some good ball for us. Had the 2 picks. I can see why he feels that way because, and this is also important point of Geno's game is this was inevitable with how many dropbacks they're doing. Now, I know that the final dropback number is going to be influenced by the last couple drives where they were just slinging it. That's cool. But even before it got out of hand for real, they were on pace for Geno to probably throw like 50 times, at least like 45. Ken had 14 carries today, and they couldn't run the ball. Zach Charbonnet had 5 for 20. That Gerindo dude on one run had more than Ken and Zach combined for the game. I looked this up before the game. Seahawks running backs during this 6-game losing streak have not combined for more than 76 rushing yards against the Niners. That Gerindo dude had that on one run today. One. He's not even the starter. He's not even the starter if the starter go down. Like, that is that inexcusable stuff. Like, they're one dimension. Like, I think Geno's a good player and he can put the team on his back, but he can't do that every week. He's dropped back over 50 times 3 weeks in a row. I don't think Mahomes is going to play well if that's the case. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. You can't ask anybody to do that with no run game 50 plus times. I don't care if you got a good O-line or not. Eventually, you're going to screw up. I think they were fortunate he didn't screw up a ton in the last 2 weeks. This was inevitable. I'm not excusing it, but like, there's a reason why Mike Macdonald keeps bringing that up. Like, oh, it's a team stat. This is a team game. Team got to be better. Because he's like, dog, what I'm supposed to do? Coach keep calling pass plays. Eventually, Geno go throw it to the other team. That's just everybody. I think Mahomes leads the league in interceptions. Like, that's just going to happen. So I think that, yeah, Geno's got to make better throws. Maybe he can get the benefit of the doubt that he will. But if he has to drop back 50 times, this is going to happen again. That's just not feasible. It's really not, which is why, yeah, we got to look at Grubb, look at the run game, look at the O-line. But, Chris, it goes back to the title of the show. This is every time they play the Niners. They can't run the rock. They can't run the rock. What are we going to do? Blame who's the old O-line coach? Should we blame Andy Dickerson today? Should we blame Shane Waldron today? Should we blame what's the other old white dude they had? Mike Solari. Should we blame Mike Solari today? We're going to blame Shoddy today? I know Shoddy was a while ago, but y'all get the point. Eventually, something got to be better. This is not better than the previous product. It might even be worse.
Gil Griffin, does this game change your view on Geno getting another contract? And part 2, we also had a question from Mac Doyle. Under constant pressure is one thing, but he ain't getting $40 million a year. Not here anyway. I'll take him over a lot of the quarterbacks in the league, but he ain't in the conversation with the top tier 1 quarterbacks, which I think we have established. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, like let's go through it. Let's see. If you are, we don't have to do a full-on deep dive, but let's here, Chris. I'm gonna pretend you're a GM, right? Of the teams I'm gonna say. Yep. Let's say Geno throws, he's on pace for a lot of picks. Let's say he has like the year he had last year. Let's go with that. He'll probably throw more picks than that, but you guys get the point, right? Geno just has like a decent year that looks more like the Broncos game than anything else. Not the Lions, that's probably the best of him, and not today, that's probably the worst. The middle is probably like the Broncos game. Let's go with that as the middle. Maybe even the Patriots game, 2 for like 3 bills. but not like a ton of touchdowns. Wasn't super gaudy, right? Let's go with that. All right, Chris. Geno does that. I think he turned 34 today.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Cool. You are the general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders, and Geno's a free agent.
Oh.
You giving Geno 40 mil?
Yes.
All right, we got one team. I'm not gonna debate these. You're the GM, so you make the call. All right. You are the general manager of the Carolina Panthers.
When can I sign?
All right. We got another one. We got no, a lot of QB. Oh, here we go. You are the general manager. Oh, this guy might get fired, but you are the general manager of the Cleveland Browns.
What?
Let's assume in this scenario that you guys are just done with Deshaun. Whether you cut him or not, you're just done with him.
Geno, we'll sign you to a $10 million bonus if you could sign tonight.
All right, there's gotta be another team in here. It's kind of fun. You are the general manager of the New England Patriots.
Have you guys not seen Jacoby? Where can I sign? Let's get it going.
All right. And I think, is that it? Oh, well, let's try this one. You are the general manager of the New York Giants.
Ooh.
I know, right? That's
I'm gonna have to do it just because I don't know if I could trust Daniel Jones. He had a great performance against us, but we'll make the trade. What do you want?
All right, and I think I got one more.
Jalen Hurts. Shoot, at this point,
I think he'll be okay. I had one more. Oh, here we go. You're the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I ain't seen Russ play yet, but damn, that would suck. Geno come back and
replace Russ twice. No, that's nasty. I didn't even think about that. That would be real nasty.
I probably won't do that. I will say
okay.
I probably say no to that one because I want to give Russ a shot. He ain't even thrown a pass yet.
So let's assume, how many teams did you say yes? Like four or five?
4 or 5, yeah.
Now let's assume that at least a couple of those teams can draft quarterbacks. Maybe the Patriots are just like, we'll overroll with Drake May, or let's draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. There's at least a couple teams available. But the point is, I think that we can all probably agree that even though Geno is not like tier 1 dude, I think that, and let's see what you think, Chris. If the product around Geno was better, I think he'd be better. Like specifically in these games. Like think about that number I just gave you guys. They can't even run for more than 75 yards with multiple running backs like combined in that number. And we want Geno to ball out against a team that's contending for a title. Oh, and the defense sucks. Oh, and the special teams might be bad too. Like, I don't think you plop in a lot of quarterbacks. Not to just make excuses for Geno, but give it some context. Geno is more. They have. Let's see. Put it this way: if they make a list of all the issues that when they play the Niners, I think Geno checks in at what, Chris?
8 or 9.
Yeah,
far down the list, man.
Yeah. I mean, run defense is first. Pass defense is second.
Offensive line third.
Offensive line is third. You want to make that first? I'm okay with that. Play calling,
Deja had to be on the line. Grub, can we call pass plays beyond the sticks, please?
Yeah, that was. I seen that clip after the game. I don't know if he was yelling at Grub. I tried to talk to DK after the game.
That is true. I do not know if he was yelling at Grub, but he called somebody on the phone.
Yeah, no, it's very clear he was yelling at a coach. Ain't no players on the headsets, right? So you can rule that out. I'll tell you guys that right now. I don't know who he's talking to. I tried to ask DK if he wanted to talk after the game. He said no. He walked out. That's cool. That's his right. Whatever. So I don't know, but he was yelling at somebody, and it seemed to be very pissed about the direction of the offense. I feel like we can surmise that from afar. That's how bad it's gotten, though. He's tired of losing to these guys. Remember, I opened this up saying I was looking for somebody who played in all 6 games. He played in all 6. Lost every time. Now, he's also beaten them several times. But, yeah, he played in all these 6 last losses. He's tired of doing this. And I feel him, man. I want to yell at somebody too, man. They should not be having these same issues that they've had over and over again. Like, you can't win a division. You can't beat the Niners. If you can't win a division, can't be a contender. Can't be a contender, everybody gets fired.
This next one is from Brendan. Explain why the penalty that negated DK's touchdown and why that's a rule.
Everyone just has to be stationary at the snap. That was the illegal shift. Is that right?
Yes.
I got that right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a simple one. That's a simple one. Stay still. It ain't that hard. That's football. Been doing that for a while. You do see some guys bouncing like that, but if you notice, that's being called pretty consistently. I think Garrett Wilson just got hit with that in a prime one of these primetime games the Jets just had. Like it's pretty consistent. You have to be stationary. Like you can't be bouncing and you can't be moving towards the line. You know, this is why some teams, for what it's worth, don't do a ton of motion because you just don't. You don't want to overload guys. You know, and the Seahawks do a ton. They move in the tight ends over here, the receivers over there. Geno under center, then goes to shotgun. Like there's benefits, pros and cons. I think there were multiple illegal motion penalties on both teams today. Like there are some downsides to it. The more confusing one today, Chris, was like why you can get a face mask penalty on a play that was technically blown dead. That was kind of funky.
I was like, huh?
But
I
they
guess
said that a 15-yarder trumps a 5-yarder. So,
bruh, the funniest thing was D. Williams clearly touching the punt return when he
That was
when a defender was pushed into him by Spoon. The officials go and check it, then say, "Oh yeah, we didn't see anything wrong." I'm watching on HD TV. I said, "How did they miss that?" Then they get I forget who it is, but one of the top dudes comes on. Yeah, man. So it comes to find out they didn't have the correct copy to see that he did touch the football. I said, why would you ever come on television and admit that you didn't have the right copy that you needed to see to make any changes on the call? You would think a professional team, officials, have every angle of a play so that they don't make the mistake. Imagine if the Niners lost that game. They are sending that tape to the NFL and they want some serious answers because I said, wow, how could you miss that after going to review it? You had the opportunity to go and change it, and they still got it wrong. I just couldn't believe it.
No, that was crazy. How do you have an angle that the public has, but the guys calling the game don't? That the officials don't. What you mean it's on TV, but the ref can't see it?
I said,
that's wild.
I said, there's no way he said that on live TV. They have to be like, hey, bro, can we dump that? Too late. I heard it. Everyone heard that.
All them damn cameras. No, that was the refs. Both teams probably have some legitimate gripes today.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it ultimately it just came down to the Niners being better. But yeah, the ref show. That I've never seen anything like that. Yo, yeah, we ain't got that camera angle. Amazon didn't send that to us. Like, what you mean? What you mean Amazon didn't shoot that over? Like, yo, yeah, that was bad. That was bad. I mean, that play kind of ended up being inconsequential to what we're talking about from the Seahawks view, but it was really bad. That can't happen. That just can't happen.
No. All right. Next one we got is from Nick. What's the missing piece on this team to get over that hump?
Man, there's so many. It's not just one. That's the real man. It feels like it being a little doom and gloom, but I really feel like, and I talked about Chris, you and I both talked about this quite a bit, man. We had high expectations for a team that fired Pete Carroll. You know, they fired a Pete Carroll team that won 9 games.
I'm gonna keep it a beam, Mike. You had higher expectations. I said 9-8, and you said, Chris, why would they fire Pete just to go 9-8 again? I said, look, man, they got to restart. I don't know if it's gonna be instant success. And to your point, you was like, then why fire Pete? And I'm like, damn, Mike, you got me stumped. I don't know why. I didn't fire him, but that's just how I'm viewing it. So I will say we did have a slight disagreement because I'm like 9 wins is cool with me. You're like, hell no, that's the same spot they've been in the last few years, Chris. Just keep Pete. But continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're gonna fire him, get better. You know, if you're gonna fire him at that point, it's not like it's the reason that doesn't apply to Belichick. I think when they won like 2 games or something. Like it's very easy to be like, yo, you should probably fire it doesn't matter who the coach is. If you just if you're picking second, you can probably justify getting rid of that coach. They were, a bounce or 2 away from being a frisky wild card team. Now they have higher aspirations than that, but they were close. Let's see. What did the Patriots win? They won 4 games last year. You can fire anybody who win 4 games, even if it's Hoodie Bill, Bill Belichick is my nickname for him. But my thing was, this was not and especially because they kept the coaching staff, or excuse me, the front office. If they were just like, we're going to keep ownership, we're going to keep all our scouts, we're going to keep all our front office personnel people, we're going to keep the trainers, the cooks, the security guards, everybody else, but Pete and his people. They need to go. Cool. Bring in better people. Chris, through 6 games, there's not a ton of evidence that that's the case. And I'm using the Niners game to do that because this is it. You look around, and when coaches get fired, you can almost work backwards from this. Ask yourself, did that coach win a division? Or when's the last time that coach won a division? Chances are, tracing that answer will usually tell you why a guy gets fired. Pete got tons of coaches fired in the NFC West over like a decade. He was getting Jeff Fisher fired. He got like 3 Niners coaches fired in a row. I mean, some of them, that one dude with the mustache got himself fired, Chip Kelly. But generally speaking, you guys get my point. They could not beat Pete. John Harbaugh, or not John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh. Again, tons of Niners coaches. Bruce Arians. If you could not beat Pete, you were going to get fired eventually. It's the same thing. Look at all these coaches in the AFC West. You can't beat Andy Reid, you will get fired. They are just cycling through coaches in that division. The AFC East is going through is going to start going through more of the same thing. If you can't beat Sean McDermott in Buffalo, Mike McDaniel, you're going to get fired. Robert Saleh just got fired. Gerard Mayo probably got some time, but because he just got there. But you guys get the gist. If there's just a team, if you can't win your division, it's hard to have job security. Mike Macdonald and his staff got hired to go win the division, if nothing else. Maybe not the Super Bowl off rip, but go win the NFC West, own the West. And the Niners own the West. They are that team. They've won it, the last 2 years or something like that? Kyle Shanahan been to like 4 NFC title games already, a couple Super Bowls. He's the guy. Beat him. Oh, this is the product you put out there? What the hell? We done seen this. We seen this. Like that, it's not one piece that's missing on this, but the problem is I'll spin that question back, even if we're still on that question. I can't remember, but I'll spin that back. Mac Macdonald was supposed to be the piece. That's the real thing. He's supposed to be the piece. And through 6 games, it's like, yeah, he changed some things, new slogans, new way of doing stuff, a couple schemes here and there, but it's like, it feels like we just went in a different route to the same joint. If you ever typed in the MapQuest and you'd be like, all right, I want to avoid the tolls or avoid the freeway. We just got off the freeway and took the surface streets. We still late. You know what I'm saying? We went to the same spot. We still late for work. It's the same thing. We just took a different route.
This next one is from, also known as Phil. Is this on the coaches or the players? Explain the poor execution.
Yeah, I think the execution doesn't have like one consistent thing that's been wrong. Like sometimes it's coverage stuff, sometimes it's gap stuff. I think that in the Giants game, they may have underestimated the Giants. I think there's some chemistry stuff going on with guys in and out of the lineup, but I mean, that's football. If you guys play fantasy or just follow the league, guys are dropping like flies on every team. The good teams are finding a way to make it happen. I just watched the Chiefs resurrect Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith. I felt like I was watching a 2017 game. I was like, what you mean Juju got 100 yards and Kareem Hunt got 100 yards? What year is it? Right? Like, they got injuries too. A lot of teams have injuries. You got to figure it out. And I think that the lack of execution, it's coaching, but then it's also like buy-in. You really got to buy into what Mike and his guys are doing. This is on offense too, for what it's worth. They have way too many offensive penalties. It is ridiculous how many offensive penalties they have that negate big plays too.
Holding. How many times did you hear that tonight? I'm like, bruh, y'all shooting yourself in the foot.
Holding
Illegal
can
shit.
happen, but like, yeah, those are the ones. Illegal motion, illegal
False
shift,
start.
ineligible man downfield. I think Geno might have thrown it a little late on that. So maybe not totally Charles's fault there, but it's happened enough that it's not just a one-off, OPI, and also I think an ineligible man downfield is just inevitable when you run a bunch of screens. Like if you run 10 screens, chances are one of your linemen's going to F up on one of them. It's too hard. It's not college, right? So yeah, that's the undisciplined part. I think that's coaching. That's mental as well. And I think on defense, it doesn't feel like they're getting penalized a ton. So that's good. Like clearly it's kind of working on that side of the ball Because before, Chris, 3rd and 8, you knew like Ugo was good for a illegal contact or something away from the play. Like it was just like clockwork.
Trey did get away with one today on Thursday because that boy hemmed up Juan Jennings or Brandon Ayuk, and the ref was like, "Yeah, that wasn't a PI." I said, "What? I just saw it on national TV, the replay." My man mugged him, and then was like, "Nah, he tried to hook me. He tried to pull like a James Harden. When James goes to the basket and he be putting the ball under your wrist, and you get hooked, and then it's a foul. It's like, bro, I'm in position. This man hooked me." That's what Trey was trying to argue, and I'm like, Trey, bro. That was clearly pass interference. Like, I know you had a rough week last week, but buddy, I seen it in 4K.
Yeah, that was rough. No,
they canceled it. It's all good.
Yeah, both teams, had gripes with the refs. But yeah, I think it's just not ultimately, as Mike Macdonald knows, to his credit, you are responsible for the product that goes on the field. You what you emphasize is what you'll get. What you drill is what you get. What you coach is what you get. There's like an old quote. It's probably like Bill Parcells, maybe even older. You're either coaching it or allowing it. That's usually how it goes in the NFL. I mean, most team sports, but it's particularly in the NFL. From the coach's view, what they put on the field, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. That's it. One and two, or both. But that's the reality of the game. Mike Macdonald knows that, but also it just comes back to him. Again, I don't think they do anything particularly well. In any phase, all three. Chris, we haven't talked about bad special teams like ever on this pod. We've been doing this pod since 2017. Maybe we rag on the kicker or something, debate about never kick, but we ain't never just like, yo, what's up with the special teams coordinator? People tweeting me about Jay Harbaugh. I never get tweeted about the special teams coordinator. It's week 6, like it's not great, man. It is not great. It's a lot of, I would say, to answer the question before we move on, coaching, man. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it. Ultimately, it falls on you. It's early. He can figure it out. But yeah, I think if you don't want to lay all this at the feet of John Schneider, which is fine, it really is a Mike Macdonald thing through 6 weeks.
Rumpelstiltskin _Clark through 6 weeks. What do you guys think of Mike Macdonald and the coaching staff? And what do you think the front office thinks?
Ooh, I would love to know what John thinks. Might go over to Dino's pub and just post up until he comes in there, get a John Schneider quote. But Chris, I feel like, see what you think. I think this looks like a team with 3 coordinators, quote unquote, 3 coordinators. Or no, I would say 3 coordinators. 3 guys who have never done this job before. Looks like a head coach that's never been a head coach and a DC. Looks like an OC that's never been an NFL OC. And it looks like a special teams coordinator that's never been an NFL special teams coordinator. It's exactly what it looks like. It looks like ebbs and flows, extremes on all sides. One day the offense is great, one day it stinks. One day the game plan's good, one day it's not. One day the defense is great, then it's not. One day you have adjustments, and then you don't. One day your special teams is great, then it's bad. These inconsistencies, these feel like rookie growing pains. Rookie in the like. I know Mike Macdonald has been a DC before, but never a DC and the head coach. Ryan Grubbs never coached in the NFL ever. He coached the Pac-12 game on Sunday, threw it like 50 times, just wouldn't run it at all, and then owned up to it to his credit. And then special teams. Now, Laviska fumbling the ball, I'm not going to just totally attribute to the coach. I don't think it should matter who the coach is. Every guy knows not to fumble. Laviska's been in the league since like 2016. He needs a coach to tell him not to fumble. That's nonsensical. Nothing to do with the coach. But in general, their special teams are bad. Yeah, all these guys are new. They don't know each other. They're all new. Now, ball is ball at the end of the day, but you're not going against guys who are as new as you. Like you're just not. And these growing pains, I think, are part of having a new staff. And Chris, I feel like we talked about this in the offseason too. The degree of difficulty in only getting rid of Pete and his guys. That just means that you just think you just can find guys are just better than all of those guys at everything right away, even if they've never done it. It's not to say you can only be good at something if you've done it before, but that's a huge leap of faith. Like we're going to get a head coach, never been a head coach, OC who's never been an NFL OC or coach in the NFL ever, and we're going to get special teams coach who where the hell was Jay Harbaugh before this? Michigan? Like,
I believe so. Yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, all the Harbaughs, work at Michigan at some point. So that always felt like a big leap of faith. Yeah, he was special teams coordinator at Michigan. He's been doing that for a few years since 2019. So yeah, that always felt like a leap of faith to me. I don't know about you, but I kind of anticipated growing pains, and what we're getting is a team that looks like it has a bunch of guys in roles they just have never been in before.
Yeah, my expectations weren't high. Hell, I said 9-8, Mike. That's how you know. I was like, I'm not expecting y'all to come out and dominate teams because I know how challenging it is, as all the things that you mentioned and alluded to. But I also didn't expect it to look this bad or the same as it has been. That was the one thing I expected it to be different. Now, to be fair, there has been I love the no huddle offense, but also think it hurts them too. It's a yin and yang in that regard because it works sometimes and it could be a mess. Penalties, as you mentioned, illegal shifts, all these things. That tends to be a problem when you're doing hurry up. Guys are tired now. That's the give and take, I would say, with everything new. But for the most part, my expectations were just like I'm not expecting this team to do much in the playoffs. Now, maybe year 2, year 3, when they find out more so their identity, and we can get to that. One of the questions was about identity. I think I'll have a better understanding. But first year, I was kind of lax just because, as you mentioned, Mike, the 3 new people, man. This is a whole new regime taking over, and that's a lot of expectation. I know Mike was like, okay, that's cool and all, but are you guys trying to win? Because again, you could have just kept Pete. There's no need to do all this reshuffling and y'all be in the same scenario y'all been in the last 3 years. If anything, you just need better personnel, and you could have kept Pete, and maybe this team wins 11 games and you get that playoff push or whatever the case may be. But it's 2024. We moved on from that. Mike Macdonald's the head coach. So expectations for me were simple. Hey, 9-8, cool. Growing pains, I expect it. I know Mike had a little higher standard. I respect it. I get it. But that's just where I was at. Mike Dugar, that is. Not obviously Mike Macdonald once won a Super Bowl, but
Right, yeah.
I know I'm probably confusing folks. What Mike you talking about, man? Dugar.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, not to even just make it seem like, you had to keep Pete or else type of thing. You could have went with someone with experience, or who was going to fill out the staff with experience. Because I think hiring a guy who hasn't done the head coach thing is fine. Like,
So
could give guys new chances.
that's
But
perfect. Imagine if they went with Leslie Frazier as the head coach and Mike Macdonald as maybe a DC still.
well, you can't get Mike Macdonald. He got to be the DC. He's got to be the head coach or nothing. He's not going to lead the Ravens.
That is true. But in this like perfect world, he ain't leaving. So I guess there's that. But what if you hired Leslie Frazier as the head coach and you brought in, I don't know, I don't know who you would bring in. But
Well, see, you could also do this scenario where it's like you bring in a Mike, but then Mike fills out his staff with more experience. Because this does look like an inexperienced staff, so you can have him, but maybe make Leslie the DC.
Why didn't John Schneider jump in there, a man that's been around the block, and just be like, yo, we should probably get some. I'm not saying that he didn't, but I'm sure the conversations could have been, hey, we need to get some senior advisors, including a Leslie Frazier, to do some coaching instead of just advising you when things are going great and bad per se.
Well, I'm sure that the guys that they have were not all their first guys. Mike got hired late in the cycle, so that would have then affect how you fill out your staff. Like, guys get poached. That's the name of the game. So who knows what they tried and did not do. But I do think because I don't want to make it seem like it's like, dang, guys, they had to get rid of Pete. We had to try something new. That's fair. But this is like real new and real green. This is like it's like a basketball team in high school where everybody was a senior. Y'all lost in the first round of state, but then the whole starting 5 the next year is freshmen. Like you just got a bunch of new bucks. That's tough. It's hard to go back to state. If with all the young bucks.
It's hard to make the Metro playoff. Let's just leave it at that. Don't even put it at state.
Yeah, like either way, whatever the goal benchmark is, it's just tough, So but to the point about how we feel about the staff, this looks like that. This looks exactly like that. Not to say it can't get better, but it looks like right now, guys who are doing a lot of this on learning as they go, which is true. That's what it is. They're learning as they go.
Next one is from Adam. Is this a playoff team?
So I'm pull back the curtain a little bit. When Chris and I go over all the questions before we press record, we run through them together, kind of feel like what our general answer would be. I was like, yeah. Then I pulled up the schedule. I said, wait a minute. I said, wait a minute now. I said that too confidently. Chris, I'm not sure. I feel like I'm overreacting by saying that. However, it is the fact that what they're not good at is so easy to exploit. It is. We just watched a Niners team without Christian McCaffrey run for 200. We just watched Darius Slayton go for $120 with no Malik Neighbors. We just watched Tyrone Tracy Jr., rookie running back, go for $1, I think 29 or something that he had, buck and some change, running back for the Giants. We're getting into that space again, Chris. Like we were in a 2022 where a new dude is setting a career high in something on offense every week. It was, remember that little run we had? It was like TJ Hawkinson went crazy. Taysom Hill looked like prime Michael Vick. Cordell Patterson had like a career high in rushing yards. There was just this little run where everybody, Puka and Tutu, went nuts in the same game. It was like guys just, it was teams that didn't even need to have a star. That's the point of what I'm saying. Now, obviously, Hawkinson is a star, but outside of that, I just named due to some of them guys aren't even on the same team that they're on, when I name that. So, like, the point of that is if you can get carved up by a Tyrone Tracy, now maybe he goes on to be a stud, but you get the point. If you can get carved up by him, if you can get carved up by a Darius Slayton, if Isaac Dorendo can hit you for $1, if Jordan Mason can average 73 yards or 8.1 yards a carry like he did today, I mean, he was second in rushing coming into this, but still, like if it doesn't require a bunch of star power for teams just looking at the offense to get busy on you, well, then damn, you look at the schedule. Okay, who's to say Drake London can't go crazy, or Kyle Pitts, or Darnell Mooney? Now the Buffalo game is interesting, but who's to say James Cook don't go crazy? Keon Coleman just had a 50-yard tug. Mac Collins or whoever, I forget his name right now. Khalil Shakir. Like when you're letting whoever get busy, that is really problematic. If you just get cooked, like you mentioned the Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry games where those guys went crazy and had big runs, well, that's Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry. Those are all pro guys. All pro. I think Josh Jacobs was the rushing champ that year. Derrick Henry, I think, went for another thou wow that year. That's one thing. Isaac Dorendo, I may have butchered his name like 10 times today. Isaac, I'm sorry if I have. But that is different. That is where I get concerned. So yeah, if you're just like, oh well, Mike, we'll beat the Bills. They don't got no wide receiver one. Neither did the Giants. Well, come on, Mike. We'll beat the Rams. They ain't got no O-line. They dinged up and everything. Cool. That's great. I watched Tutu and Puka in his first game come in here and go for like 2 Bills, together. Tutu ain't done that since, I don't think. I have to go look that up. But he probably, Chris, can you look that up? How many times go to Tutu at Will Pro Football Reference? See how many times he's gone for 100 yards after that game?
I got you.
Looked at it for me. Yes. Okay. And then you go down the line. The Niners again, the Jets. Like every team has someone that could go crazy if anybody can go crazy on you. Not to say they're going to lose all those games, but I can't say with confidence that you're a playoff team when I'm worried about Darnell Mooney going crazy on you. You know what I mean? Like that's just does not seem reasonable. So I think that it's not over. Obviously, it's week 6, but I'm looking at the conference right now. Assuming they don't win a division, you're looking at wild card battles with Detroit, Green Bay, Tampa, Dallas, Philly. Like there's a lot of frisky wild card teams in there, and they're already 0-3 in the NFC. Let's not forget that 0-3 already in the conference. That's bad.
So Tutu had 119 yards against the Seahawks, did not reach 100 yards the entire year, and hasn't reached 100 yards this season. He had 93, and that was 93 yards this season against. Let me pull it up one more time. The biggest point is he ain't done it in over a year.
Yeah, he ain't done it. He's never done it again. He never done it again. Like, thank you. That's the point. I didn't even know that off the top of my head. Thank you for looking at it. If Tutu can just have the best day of his life, well, anybody can have the best day of their life. And if anybody can have the best day of their life against you, then you're susceptible to losses. And that's just the defense. I think the offense will kind of be fine going forward. But this defense, man, they got to tighten up fast, real fast.
That's crazy. He really has not reached 100 yards since then.
Since then, bro, John Ross type stuff. Remember when John Ross went crazy?
Oh, man.
You know, never had a game like that ever again. You know, you can't do it.
Tanner, too early to panic?
No. I'm in the panic mode. I'm in the panic mode because I think that you got to be able to hang your hat on something on either side of the ball. And right now, Chris, the only thing I feel really confident in is that Geno will throw touchdowns. You know, and honestly, he ain't even doing that. Like multiple, I mean, in a game. I mean, how many did he have today?
He only had one on Thursday night. He threw 2 picks, 1 touchdown. That was to
so he's averaging a touchdown a game.
Yeah, there you go.
He's got 6 through 6 games. Now, I'm not to say he's playing bad, but that's the only element of the game that I am confident in. I'm not confident in the pass rush. I gave up on that. I'm not super confident in the tackling. When I say tackling too, I'm not talking about the physical part because they are actually hitting pretty hard today.
Wrapping up though, damn.
It's the angles part.
My
guys
God.
are just taking bad angles on stuff today, and we've seen that. So you can't tell me. You can't tell, like, even with the bad peak teams, as bad as it got, you just kind of always knew there was going to be something that was going to do well. And right now, I just don't really know what that is with this team, and that's tough. That is really, and that is when it's time to panic a little bit, because I also think with a Pete team, not to just totally keep bringing this back to Pete, but you'll feel me on this part. With a Pete team, you could kind of get the benefit of the doubt, particularly when the guys were younger or veterans, because there was a reverence for him. And it was a belief that, hey, this is a Super Bowl winning dude. So I'm going to trust how he rocking. I'm going to trust this foundation, this culture of this franchise, these posters on the building, on the walls. Like, there's a standard here, Seahawks standard. This guy and his staff said it. Even when it's not going well, I'm going to believe in what he's saying, what he's preaching and what we're doing. There's none of that. Not to say Mike Macdonald can't get his guys to listen. The point is that the benefit of the doubt is not the same way. He hasn't won anything. And that's just the reality of it. The culture of the Seahawks is still like there, but that was largely a Pete thing, right? So it's like, you got to earn that, is what I'm saying. You got to earn that. These guys got to see that it works. They got to see that it works here on offense and defense. So your grub, okay, prove it, man. We're trying to trust the process. Cool. Let's see it though. NFL players got to see it. I mean, that's most people. Your boss at work telling you to do something, it's not working. You're just going to keep believing in the boss. Like, hey, man, just keep doing this. It'll work. No, you need to see it in application. You see it pay off. See the preachings come to life. And they don't have that benefit of the doubt. So I'm not to say he's going to lose the locker room, but these guys are grown men. I kind of know how football players work at this point. They want to see it. It's hard to trust a process that's not yielding results. So eventually the results have to be there for guys to get total buy-in. They probably are. They may be bought in right now, mentally or whatever, but it's just not showing up. And that's really all that matters. You say you bought in all you want. You'll get whooped on Sunday. It don't matter.
Gabe, is this a crazy plan? Finish the year 8-9. Don't bring back Geno. Keep Mike Macdonald. Go 3-14 the following year. Draft Archie Manning first overall, and then Mike Macdonald can hire an actual offensive head coach.
Nah, you go 3-14. You're out of here, buddy. You're out of here. No, that's a bad plan. That's a bad plan. It's probably the realistic. I don't know, Chris. Where are you at? Do you think they need a full? I think it's too early to say they need a full tear down. I've never been a big fan of that.
Well, someone DM'd me and asked, that was one of their questions, like, hey, do you think it's time to just screw it, go for next year? I said, it's kind of to your point that you've made multiple times. It's not easy getting out of those holes when you just tear stuff down. It's not a guarantee that you will bounce back and have success to what you had with Pete Carroll there's a reason why they kept Pete for so long. It's not always greener on the other side. Right now, the Seahawks are 3-3. They're not 0-6. Okay, they have a chance to still make up for 3 straight losses. They have another tough battle because they're doing so many things so wrong, but they still have a chance. They're not one of the worst teams. Mike Macdonald turned over and got a decent roster. It's not terrible. So for you to want the team to bottom out, what's the guarantee that you're a better offensive line, that you have a better D line, that your cornerbacks are better? People are still going to get paid. This is still a business. You think Leonard Williams want to stick around here? They go 3-14? No. You think Byron Murphy's going to be excited to play for a team that's went 3-14? No. You think Rick Woolen going to want to be around in Seattle 3-14? Start thinking of it that way. Who wants to stick around for that? I could understand if there's injuries, like you lose Geno for the year and Sam Howell goes in and they win 6 games. Okay, I understood that. But to make the decision like, hey, you know what? We're just going to try to get Archie Manning. Unless Archie Manning becomes Patrick Mahomes overnight, I'm not envisioning the Seahawks trying to do that. I think it's way harder to suck and get back to the past of being a really good defense and a decent offense and winning games that way, especially with how the league is now trending. It's damn near 7-on-7. If you got receivers and you got a quarterback, you can make some action. If you don't have it, you're going to need good defense. You're going to need a good old line. You're going to need a bunch of other intangibles to help move forward. I don't think going 3-14 is the way. This roster has enough talent to be better than what they are right now at 3-3. The sucky part is they just played 3 good teams back to back to back to back.
I don't even think the Giants are good.
My
but
bad. You know what? I'm bugging. They played 2 good teams back to back and then got surprised by a team that wanted it a lot more.
Yeah, I think the reason why why I wanted to keep that question in there about like bottoming out is because it's a fascinating one. I think it's too early for it, but the thing is, you can get fool's gold kind of tripped up by winning too much when your team ain't that good. We talked about that a little bit with Dan Duggan, who covers the Giants. The Giants won however many games they won in 2022. They probably would have been better off stinking. Instead, they tricked themselves into thinking, oh, we won a playoff game. We're right there. No, you're not. You lucked into, you had a negative point differential and won a playoff game. And you won a playoff game over the other team that had a negative point differential. You know, like you didn't even beat a good team. When you played a good team, Philly, you got bent over. So, like, I think there is something to fooling yourself into thinking you're closer than you are. That is real. Should you bottom out of course not. But I do think that is a real dilemma that some teams have. The Vikings that year had it. The Vikings won 13 games on accident. But they realized, wait a minute. We not that good. Let's let Kirk go. Let's let some other of these defenders go. Let's reset this thing. And now they're like undefeated, right? The Giants made the mistake and went the other way. So I do think the Seahawks have to be a little concerned about that. Don't trick yourselves. Just, oh, man, our roster's too good. How the Jets are at. Oh, our roster's too good. You know, it's like, well, is it though? Is it? You know, that's a fair question. You never want to start losing games on purpose, but you definitely don't want to trick yourself to thinking you're closer than you are. And I think the Seahawks that's where they may be trending toward, thinking like, oh, we're right there. No, the Niners are right there. That's what right there looks like. Can you beat them? No? Okay, then you're not right there.
Well, this one comes from your cousin, Demetrius. Do you think the Seahawks and coach Mike Macdonald was feeling themselves a little too much? You think getting embarrassed 3 weeks in a row will humble them?
Humble is probably a little strong, but I do think that the Giants game in particular, I feel like they were like, yo, we're going to bounce back. We're going to beat these guys. And that was probably a little too. I feel like that happens when you have young teams, you know, guys just feel like, oh, such and such is out, you know, and you just like, oh, yeah, we're good. No, everybody, come on, man. It's the NFL. It's the NFL. For every star player that's out, there's a young buck who's like, oh, I'm up. It's my turn. You know, there's so many guys with potential in this league. You just can't think that way. And veterans, I've realized, tend not to think that way because they just know they've been on the wrong end of it at least once or twice to know, like, hey, man, I ain't underestimating nobody. You know, that's just kind of how the game goes. So I don't know if they're feeling themselves. I know Mike Macdonald wasn't. He's a very much a process guy. Very much like if it don't look a certain way, even if the result is good, he'll evaluate it as if he's looking at the process of the thing. That's good. That's a good way to look at things as a coach. So I know he wasn't 3-0 like, oh yeah, we're good. He's like, nah, man. He knew what Detroit could do. He knew that was possible if they didn't have their act together. Just like he knew they could lose to the Giants if they didn't have their act together. So I don't think he was, but 50 plus guys in the locker room. All it takes is like 2 guys to be feeling themselves if you did not play well, particularly if those guys play important spots. So yeah, I think there was a little bit of that for sure. And I do think that getting back to the drawing board a little bit is going to be good for them. It's going to be good for them. On defense, though, I don't know how many more bad run fits you got to see before it gets to them. No, for real, the Giants game should have did that. Today should have never happened. Never. The Monday night game should have been bad enough. And if that wasn't, the Giants game should have been bad enough. And if that wasn't, then I'm like, what more do you? I mean, more people gotta run through your defense before you. For real, that's like you need Bijan Robinson to hit you for $150 or something. Like, oh man, we gotta fix the run defense.
I told you. I said Bijan might have a good day against the Seahawks. It's trending that way right now.
Yeah, no, it is. But I don't think enough guys were feeling themselves or anything. I just think they got. That's what happens when you got some young guys, though. You can be like, oh, such and such is out. We straight. Your vets know. Your vets know better. Maybe the vets didn't do a good enough job instilling that. I don't know. But that is, I feel like that happens every year to a few teams that have a lot of young bucks on the roster.
Shiv drops in. Something he's been thinking about is what is the identity of this team? What does it take for a team to learn what its own identity is? And do the Seahawks even know themselves yet?
Nah, I don't think they do. But this is how you figure it out, though. You're back against the wall. You don't find your identity when you're winning. You find when you're winning pretty, I guess. You find it when your back's against the wall. That's what you do. Like, all right, cool. Are we finger pointing, or is everyone holding themselves accountable? Post game is probably not the best for that. I thought like during the week, guys were pretty accountable. Geno generally is pretty much. The other leaders are, when they talk. Not everyone talks post game. They be hot. I understand. Take an L on national TV. That's tough. That's tough, man. That's real tough. But I do think this is when you find out the identity. Because right now, no, they do not have one. Pete's team didn't have one either. By the end, that's why they got fired. So we're right back at square one in that regard too. But no, they don't have one. This is when they'll find right here, right now. Right now is when you figure it out. Do you figure it out when you won 3, lost 3? Now what? You gonna lose 4 or bounce back? I think this is where you find the identity on both sides. They need it on both sides. That's the really troubling part. Because they're not doing anything particularly well with any consistencies, on either side. See, I think this is when they find it. I don't think there's a set number of games. I feel like each team has its different one. Like I do feel like for the Jets, I feel like that'll be this week for them. After losing Robert Saleh, you play the Bills Monday night. I think they're at the crib. There's just some teams where their game, like for the Cowboys, I feel like it's whenever they play the Niners. I feel like that's when they learn who they are. Then they get their boots smoked, and we learn that they're frauds. But I feel like that is when we learn. For different teams, it's a different point. For every AFC team, for every AFC West team, it's when you go to Arrowhead. How do you play against Mahomes and them at Arrowhead? When you learn about yourself. And if you're an AFC contender in the playoffs, it's what happens when you go to Arrowhead. Can you beat Mahomes and them down there? No. It's like, maybe that's not the identity part, but I do feel like that's when you really, there's different teams are measuring their stuff by different, whether it's a team or a stretch. For Miami, it's like, what do you do when the temperature drops? Right? Because they just suck in November and December. Right? Like every team is kind of has their own thing. And for the Seahawks, it's right now, it's can you beat the Niners? That's it. Right now, the answer is no. So you have no identity.
Next one, we got 3 questions, and it's all about John Schneider. So we're going to mix and match. It's from Jack, Katie, and Christopher with a K. At what point do we start to question John Schneider? This team has essentially the same issues for 3.5, 4 years now. Not good old line, defensive line struggles, and linebackers. And then who's on the hot seat? Schneider, Jody, Mike, Jay, Ryan Grubb.
Yeah, I really wanted to keep this question in there because I actually let me read this text I sent to my editor post game. I'll read it verbatim. This was like while I was walking to the locker room, I think. I said, we got a lot of scrolling. We were talking about some of the weird calls. I said, let me find this. I said, honestly, it would be very easy in the big picture to lay this at the feet of John Schneider. Because you really can, Chris. I can't remember which pod it was, but I really do feel like I've said this and I keep saying it. I had a hard time separating John from Pete. I felt like they were a package deal. I felt like if you were going to fire one guy, you should have just cleaned house or kept them both. Either way, splitting them just never felt right. Just never felt right to me. It just felt like, yo, how do you know this was him versus this was his fault? Like, they both had just done such bad things, in like last half decade. Like, if you want to see what John's version of it, pull up their free agent contracts from 2000 after Cliff Averill. Pretty much pull up everything after that. Pull up every trade John's done that involved giving up a first round pick. Pull up every draft pick from 2013 to 2019. Like there's just so much, and there's some other stuff in there too. But and then for Pete, we can, we've gone down a list. Here's all the things he messed up in his staff and everything, coaches, whatever, right? But I just couldn't separate the two, and I feel like they were packaged. They built the thing together, and they necessitated a rebuild together. Except it was like, nah, get the gray hair guy out of here. I was like, oh, based on what? Now Jody has more inside info than we do, of course. So does Burt Cole, her number 2, right? I get that. But just from what we know, Chris, like I would have just cleared house. I would have got rid of Russ, Pete, and John if we was going to do that. I don't think anyone deserved to be the last man standing of those 3. I don't think getting rid of John and Pete and keeping Russ. Nope, that wasn't it. Getting rid of Russ and John and keeping Pete. Nope. I feel like the era needed to just be gone. Like if he was going to do that. And so I bring that up. It's like, yeah, man, you can do that now to answer the question. You can lay it at him now. Look at the O-line. Look at the D-line. It's the same issues. It's the same stuff. John Schneider bet on, and this can still happen. It's early. This can still happen. He bet on Mike Macdonald and his staff taking dudes and elevating them to be the best version of themselves, like what happened in Baltimore, particularly on defense. That Matabuke dude didn't look like that before Mike Macdonald. Patrick Queen didn't look like that. Roquan already did. But like Kyle Hamilton, he was like young, and then now he's like one of the best in the league. Number 21, their other corner. Geno Stone had like 7 picks last year. They were counting on, the Seahawks were, oh, okay, we'll give Mike some blue chip dudes too, Leonard, Spoon, Reek, okay. But he can take a Rayshon Jenkins and make him get the best version of him. He can get the best version of Julian Love. He can get the best version of Tyrell Dodson. He can get the best version of Jerome Baker. He's going to get the best version of Jerry Reed. Like, he's going to do all that. D Hall, boy, cool. That's the gamble. Chris, who on the Seahawks D is playing their best ball, like the best of their career, on either side of the ball?
Nobody. It's close. Like Reek's almost there, or Spoon's almost there, but even then, he had a bad week. Yeah, it's not consistent. So that's why I said nobody. As of right now, 6 weeks in, it's not like, damn, this is the best they've ever been. It's, oh, he had 3 good weeks. Oh, damn. 3 tough weeks.
Yeah, I would say your only candidate is probably like Reek. We got to see because Reek did it for a full season, but then D Hall is probably the only one I can think of off the top of my head who's probably like, okay, this is the best I've ever seen, right? Outside of that, maybe Ken, he's just not getting the touches. No one else, I'm like, okay, particularly on defense, like I'm not seeing the elevation. I'm seeing the inconsistencies of guys who, okay, I can see why you were available in free agency. I can see why this contract only was this. I'm seeing that. That's not what you're supposed to see. You're supposed to see guys outplaying the perception. because that's what Mike Macdonald did in Baltimore. A lot of dudes played well over their skis playing for that dude. It's not happening now. That was the gamble. That was John's gamble. Because Jody said, hey, go hire your guy. He was like, bet, got this. Let me dig out the notebook from 2010. I'm on it. Went to church that morning of the Ravens title game and prayed to be able to talk to Mike. Cool. Got your mans. You gambled, though. At some point, that part has to pay off. And if it doesn't, that falls on the GM, too. And also, I just think that, like, relatively speaking, outside of maybe the Titans of the last few years, the John's O-line construction might be the worst in football. Might be the worst in football. The Abe injury is not his fault. That's kind of bad luck with Abe's knee, but it ain't like it's just stone out there stinking up the joint.
Connor Williams, man, you got the guards. They're not playing well. I watched film not too long ago, man. They did a beautiful play design. They're pulling the left guard and the right guard. You know what happens, Mike? None of them block anybody. You know what Ken meets? A linebacker. You know what happens? No gain.
Yeah, you know, it's like if it happens year after year after year, it's like bro hasn't been able to find a stud center since trading Max. That was almost 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
crazy.
Yeah, we can move on to the next question. But short version of the answer is, man, you can do that right now. You could have done that week 4. To be honest, like I really do feel like when you have recurring issues up year over year over year, changing all of these coaches and players and roster, and you got the same issues, yeah, nah. Start at the top. Go straight to the top. Start blaming those folks.
Last one comes from They Call Me Panda Man. Mike, what Will Smith movie?
I didn't know that was happening. I'm sorry. My
You're
bad.
good.
Panda Man. Oh damn. All right, go ahead.
What Will Smith movie, TV quote do you have about something positive in the face of this poo-poo we're going through with the Seahawks? Respect.
Yeah. Man, I can't. I was thinking about this too while we were recording. I can't think of a good Will Smith quote or any TV movie quote. It's just so bad. Yeah, it's just so bad.
You know what?
I do think of I can't I think it's what's the movie where they flying the planes? Oh, Red Tails. I've been thinking of that like I think the theme in that movie is like to the last something we fight, right? And I don't have the direct quote, but the idea that like it really ain't over. As bad as everything we just talked about was, it's really not. Like they have a lot of ball ahead of them. You know, Mike Macdonald said something today. I think he was like, we have the right pieces. You know, Jaron Reed said something to me similar. He was like, we got the right guys, you know?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's the problem.
That's the same quote. I feel like you.
Bro, I've heard that. Quentin Jefferson told me that a few years ago.
That's who it was.
Quandre told me that a few years ago. Dwayne Brown told me that. Yeah, we got the right guys in here. We just need to. All right. I'm not even saying they lying when they say it. I just think I've been around the block long enough to know that that's just not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather them just lie, you know? Because it just don't. It's the same thing, Chris, in the preseason. If you guys noticed, I was not big on just printing these buzzwords that these new coaches were using. Oh, what do you think of Ryan Grubb's offense? Oh, yeah, it's real explosive. It's real intricate. All right, cool. We'll see. Oh, what do you think of Mike's defense? Yeah, it's real complex. Communication is like, they do all this stuff. All right, bet. Let's see. I don't print buzzwords no more. I need to see some. Give me an example. And I've printed some stuff where I gave some examples of how they plan to use guys, scheme stuff. But like, I don't do buzzwords. Like everybody was describing Ryan Grubb's offense. All right, let me see it score some points. Let me see it be good on third down, red zone. He's fixed like screen game now. Good for him. But this is not. I'm not seeing nothing new. I'm seeing a lot of the same problems. Not being able to run the ball. Not being effective in the red zone. Although I don't know what the red zone numbers are. Maybe that's fixed. But like third downs, inconsistencies, flat starts, protection. You know, it's just all this looks exactly the same. Defense, fundamentals, getting run all over.
I
Bad
shouldn't be laughing,
fit.
but this is just so hilarious because I feel like we can grab a podcast randomly after a loss from 2 years ago or last year, and for the first maybe hour, we've touched on everything already that we talked about in the
Yeah,
past.
it's all the same. We're just changing the names, dog. This is the worst case scenario. If it was something else that was wrong, all right, whatever. It is what it is. Every coaching staff has some flaws, but for it to be all damn near the exact same stuff, like I ain't even buy. This is not totally my peers' fault, but like I remember reading a few articles like, "Ooh, the Seahawks are gonna figure out how to use Draymond Jones now." Oh, they didn't. He's doing the same stuff. It's not even his fault. I'm talking about how he's playing. Just like, dog, this is the same thing. This is the same.
Yeah, that's why I'm laughing because to your point, what they do different?
I feel like these last 3 games have shown why you can't just ascribe all the new stuff that a coaching staff does. He'd be like, "Ooh, the old staff would never do that." I tweeted
No.
that Ryan Grubb was accountable, for the bad play calls. Like, "Ooh, this is refreshing. Look at this accountability." Dog, Shane all the time would say he called a bad play. So was Shoddy. The problem is y'all just didn't care. You didn't like them. You hadn't turned on them yet. There was so much stuff that is just basic ball that the other coaches knew, and they just weren't executing. Just like these coaches. Ryan Grubb knows you got to run the ball. He's just not doing it. He's not doing it well. Shane Waldron knew that too. Clint Hurt knew to fix the run defense. Didn't do it. It's not as if these guys were going to come in with all these new ideas. They were just going to try to be better at the fundamentals of football, blocking, tackling, coverage. Nope. Has not translated. It has not. And yeah, these growing pains might continue because, like we were talking about, so young staff, or I mean, not young, but you know what I mean, inexperienced guys who don't know each other, haven't been doing this. Hopefully they can just grow with some wins like they were earlier, because they were growing earlier too. But now it's like, oh damn, now we've been got our butt kicked a few times. How do you respond from that? So we'll see.
Before we get out of here, I do have a movie quote to summarize just what's going on with the Seahawks. So I'm pretty sure it's from The Office, but there's a scene where I believe it's Toby. He's back at the office, and Steve Carell, I think he's playing this Michael character. He's yelling, "No! No! God! No!" And I'm sure as people listen to the podcast, they've realized, oh my gosh, this is deja vu. So it's listeners, fans, just no. The same things that have always been an issue have returned. And all I can see is him yelling, "No! God, no! Please, no!" 6 weeks in, it's not looking great. So I'm sure a lot of people that watch The Office know exactly the scene I'm talking about. I might even clip it in here, but nonetheless, yeah, that's the one scene that came to my mind when that question came in about, hey, do you have any quote or... And it's not positive, unfortunately, but it's a funny scene. So I'm sure all my Office folks that have seen the show, because I've only seen the clip, and that clip just stuck with me, just screaming, "No, please, God, no." Not the same thing. Not Toby at the office again. Unfortunately, the Niners are back in the office, and they're cooking stuff up.
Yeah, I think someone got mad at us for not having a more optimistic view of the Niners game coming in. And I understand that. That's fine. It's fair criticism.
Yeah.
I don't care. This is why that we weren't.
Yeah, he said the Niners were a bad team too. In my head, I'm thinking, man,
the Niners are not a bad team. They're not a bad team. That's the best team in the NFC. I'm standing by that 6 weeks in. I know the Vikings are undefeated. I know the Commanders is rolling. That Niners team is for real, y'all. They are for real. Ayuk didn't even do nothing today, dog. They dropped 36. No McCaffrey. Ayuk doing a bunch of nothing, getting cardio. 36. No Charvarius Ward. Can you name, before we go? Can you name the 3 starting cornerbacks today for the Niners?
Real quick, Mike. No, but remember what I told you? I said, Mike, in the second half, I expect the Seahawks to attack these DBs, man. You know what they try to do? Try to run that damn football to prove a point. I'm like, bro, at this point, forget the running the football. Throw it. You got 4 unknown out there. You got Mustafa, he got hurt, so they put him the backup. You got 2 young corners out there. I think the nickelback, Lenore, is the only guy that I know of. Lenore, that's the only guy. Outside of that, everybody was new. And I thought they would go out there and attack. A little too late.
I think the 2 dudes that picked off Geno were rookies.
Yes.
Pretty sure. Renardo
Yes.
Green and Malik Mustafa. Yeah, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Minnesota
the other
Malik,
part.
Mhm.
If you don't need stars to beat these guys, then you can lose to anyone. Hopefully it won't though. I might pick them to beat Atlanta. We'll see. I gotta watch some film. Who knows? Right now though, not good. Not good. And you can go all the way up to the top. If you want to just blame all this on John, I'm perfectly okay with that. Makes perfect sense to me. You got the same problems. Who's the one constant? It's the GM. Just saying. Just saying.
Well, that's been a long one. Entertaining, we hope. But we thank you for listening, watching. Appreciate all the love and support. Make sure you follow us on TikTok, Seahawks Man to Man, Instagram, Seahawks Man to Man. We will continue dropping clips, all that good stuff. Mike, is there anything you want to add before we jet?
Enjoy your weekend, y'all. Don't watch no football. You got it on Thursday. Just go do something else. Watch your Huskies, watch your Cougs or whatever. This weekend, but that's it. Otherwise, go hang out with your family, go to lunch. For real. Take a little unwind from football for like a couple days. Because after you listen to the pod though. But other than that, yeah, man. Thank you for the love and support, but take a break from football. It's too much. Don't stress yourself out. It'll be okay.